LoveLore Library. Chapter 477. A moment ago, Xiaoqing was still looking at Li Xiaoyun with admiration. The next moment, she was slapped by Meng Lin and spun around 3 times. She felt as if there were stars above her head and she fell to the ground. Meng Lin had been tolerating her for a long time. As his subordinate, she actually sided with an outsider and stared at Li Xiaoyun with a lustful expression. Did she think he was dead? Meng Lin naturally knew that Xiaoqing couldn't have faked it. She didn't have the opportunity or ability to do so. But now, in order to give himself a way out, someone had to make a sacrifice. Xiaoqing raised her head in a daze and saw Meng Lin's angry face. She also saw many women coming over to calm young Master Meng down. Her heart trembled. I didn't. Xiaoqing felt wronged. The reason why she looked at the stinky man was because he was indeed a feast for the eyes. Although it was her first day at work, she had heard from Sister Yun that young Master Meng was a playboy. She hated playboys the most. Of course, she would not speak up for young Master Meng. You said you didn't. You don't want to admit it. I'll teach you a lesson. Young Master Meng said gloomily. As he spoke, someone pulled Xiaoqing over. Xiaoqing couldn't believe that she was going to face danger again in such a short time. She immediately scratched, punched, and kicked. Stinky man, save me. It's all because of you that I was bullied. Li Xiaoyun raised his eyebrows. He was like a rock and didn't move at all. Jing Yunzhao was even more confused. Meng Lin obviously slipped away when he was about to teach Xiaoqing a lesson, right? He obviously found an excuse to leave when he realized that he had no chance of winning. Why didn't Li Xiaoyun stop him? Meng Lin's expression was ugly. He asked someone to drag Xiaoqing into the elevator. Tell Sister Yun to send something to Li Xiaoyun and the other 2. He treated Jing Yunzhao like a treasure, but she refused to give him face again and again. Since that was the case, he didn't want this woman anymore. After giving the order, Meng Lin laughed evilly and dragged Xiaoqing to a private room on the lower floor. He threw her inside and began to take off his tie in the next second. Xiaoqing saw this and turned pale with fright. She quickly shouted, "Don't come over. What are you doing? Stinky man. Stinky man, save me. Idiot." Meng Lin spat. He originally thought that the man with the surname Li had really taken a liking to Xiaoqing, but after being in a daze for a while, he realized that this woman was imagining things. What a disgrace. However, Xiaoqing didn't think so. Even at this moment, she still felt that the incomparably handsome man would definitely appear. Her boyfriend said that she was like an angel, and she thought so too. Therefore, no matter what she did, she was the best. Moreover, if that stinking man wasn't interested in her, how could he keep her? He must have liked her, that's why he helped her. It was just that that little girl was present, so he couldn't come over. After a few minutes, he pretended that he had something to do and then descended in front of her like a god. Xiaoqing screamed at the top of her lungs as she fantasized. She scrambled up from the sofa in the private room, grabbed a pillow, and kept throwing it at Meng Lin. She wanted to stall for time. Soon, someone would come to save her. He must be able to see that she was so disgusted by other men approaching her. Xiaoqing was flustered and anxious, but she was also looking forward to it. From the first time she saw that man, she couldn't help but be moved. She had never seen such an outstanding person. Even if he sat there motionless, he could still make her heart beat faster. Chapter 479. Downstairs, the resplendent hall was filled with people. The police had already retrieved the information from the computers. The name list would probably shock the entire Ning city and even the entire country tomorrow. The clubhouse had 9 floors and hundreds of private rooms. There were countless men and women. There were hundreds of executives, not to mention the employees. Bastards! Who allowed you to come? Do you know who my uncle is? Jing Yunzhao heard Meng Lin's angry and arrogant voice as soon as he arrived downstairs. Beside him was a woman who was in a mess. Who else could it be other than Xiaoqing? Xiaoqing gave him a resentful look. Ignoring anyone who tried to stop her, she rushed to Li Xiaoyun. Why didn't you come and save me? I hate you. Li Xiaoyun didn't even look at her. He walked over with Jing Yunzhao. One of the officers stood in front of Li Xiaoyun and pointed at Xiaoqing. Should we let her go? Aren't we here to crack down on prostitution? Then do you think we should let her go? Li Xiaoyun said coldly. The officer swallowed his saliva. I'm just kidding. Ha ha ha, Li Xiaoyun glanced at him. Instantly, the officer stopped talking. The next second, he looked at Jing Yunzhao and pretended to be serious. He explained, sorry, I made a fool of myself. I just think that young Master Li's scarf is too ugly. If he wears something so ugly, it means that he's in a good mood today. Will it kill you to shut up? Li Xiaoyun was speechless. Are you, friends? Jing Yunzhao asked. I'm young Master Li's childhood friend. My name is. Before the officer could speak, Li Xiaoyun dragged Jing Yunzhao to the side. Don't care what his name is. It's useless even if you know. He's not serious. The officer grinned. His temper was surprisingly good. He didn't chase after them. Instead, he turned around and kicked Meng Lin in the face. What are you looking at? Cover your head. The military and police worked together and there were quite a number of people. Police cars came one after another, dragging people to the police station. The local police chief was worried, but he didn't know what to do. The Meng family was indeed a tyrant in Serene City, but this time, it wasn't Serene City's strength that made a move. It was the upper echelons, an upper echelon that he would never be able to touch in his entire life. Furthermore, he only gave a phone call after the surprise attack. Everyone was caught off guard. Meng Lin was even more dumbfounded. Before he could even put on his pants properly, he was locked up. More than 100 executives of the Imperial Royal Court were all controlled. Those who happened to be absent were also captured. As the big boss of the Imperial Royal Court, he was closely monitored. Look, this is the guy who's trying to steal our boss's woman. TSK, TSK. Meng Lin was locked up in a room alone. He was surrounded by a few men who had taken off their military uniforms. Isn't this courting death? One of them opened his mouth and said, if you had managed to snatch it, I would have respected you as a man. In the end, not only did you not manage to snatch it, you even dared to violate the law in front of our boss. Even the gods can't save you. Our boss said that you lost the bet just now. Your arms and legs. Meng Lin's head buzzed as the few of them spoke. Do you dare to touch me? My dad's former teammates are now in the capital. They are very powerful. Meng Lin was so scared that his legs were trembling. He braced himself and said, let's try then. Brothers, let's beat him up first. After saying that, Meng Lin saw the few people's faces magnify in front of him. Meng Lin didn't know that his father's comrades had been given a death order. It was impossible for them to do anything. Moreover, what Meng Lin had done was too big. There were people above him suppressing him. Even if he became the Dragon King, he wouldn't be able to turn the situation around. Chapter 480. Meng Lin's screams kept coming. Before long, there was a pool of blood on the ground, and the tendons of his hands and feet were all broken. Li Xiaoyun was in the hotel, and the three of them were resting. Jing Yunzhao asked Pak Yuan to inquire about the situation. Pak Yuan was also shocked when he got the news. He had heard about the Imperial Royal Court, which had just opened. He was even invited to go there when it opened. But because he heard that this place was guarded by Meng Lin, he directly refused. He just didn't expect that such a place would be destroyed in a blink of an eye. The Imperial Royal Court cost a lot of money when it was built. Just the decoration cost hundreds of millions. Many people knew about some of the transactions inside, but because it had a big backer behind it, no one dared to interfere. At least in Ning City, no one should offend Meng Lin like this. Moreover, not only did they offend Meng Lin, but they also arrested Meng Lin. Inside the police station, it was overcrowded. The beautiful women and men made people's eyes dazzled. The Imperial Royal Court was completely cleaned up. The list of all the people inside was also in the hands of the police. It was also placed in front of the directors and directors. Looking at the list above, they were so shocked that they were speechless. The guests, time, and transaction amount that these men and women had accompanied since the opening of the Public Relations Department were all clearly recorded. There were even various grades. In addition, some guests with special status were also recorded. Their preferences and identities were also in the list. Looking at such a thing, who could still calm down? Fortunately, this matter was directly taken over by the higher-ups, so although they could see the information, they had no right to interfere. However, not all the guests who were arrested were here to enjoy the erotic transactions. Some people did come for business. Although they were asked to accompany them, they didn't do anything. These people were warned after interrogating, but they didn't deal with them seriously. Otherwise, the police station wouldn't be able to sit down today. But even so, the number of people was not small. After all, there were still a large number of people who were caught in bed. The photos were taken, and it was undeniable. Coupled with the identification of the ladies or handsome men, it was clear. Those who should be detained were detained, those who should be educated were educated, and those who should be fined were fined. It was extremely lively. Cars stopped at the entrance of the police station one after another. Many family members and reporters rushed over, cursing and filming incessantly. Xiaoqing squatted in a corner with her pathetically little clothes. When she felt the light, she shrank back in a panic. This was the first time she had come to the police station, and it was in such a manner. She was extremely nervous. Xiaoqing. A boy rushed over from the crowd. Xiaoqing started crying instantly. Indy. What should I do? Quick, help me talk to the police. I want to go home. I'm so scared. When the boy named Indy heard that his beloved girlfriend had been arrested and taken to the police station, his first reaction was naturally incomparable anger. In his heart, Xiaoqing was innocent and cute. She would usually be so nervous and afraid that she would reject the most basic intimate contact between a man and a woman. How could she be involved in such an affair? But when he saw her, he was a little uncertain. Her eyes were hazy, her body was bruised, and her lips seemed to be swollen. Her eyes were like silk, and her chest was exposed. Her long legs were almost in close contact with the air. It was still the first lunar month, and the temperature was still very low. If she didn't do anything, why would she be dressed like this? Chapter 481. The man's face was full of shock and hesitation. When he saw Zhongqing's outstretched hand, his heart trembled. Even so, after some thought, he walked over and hugged her. What's going on? I don't know. I was just curious and wanted to go in to take a look. Who knew that I would meet a stinky man and a vicious little girl? Because of them, I offended young Master Meng, and he, Indy, you won't despise me, right? I've let you down, Zhongqing sobbed and said, I think we should break up. I'm not good enough for you. I won't blame you, Wang Yingdi's heart ached. She gritted her teeth. Is that stinky man and young Master Meng here? Young Master Meng is locked up alone. As for the two people who harmed me, they weren't arrested. Zhongqing shook her head. Wang Yingdi's expression was complicated. She grabbed Xiaoqing's hand. Let's go. We'll explain to the police. I'll take you home. Zhongqing nodded obediently. The police checked the file and looked at Zhongqing meaningfully. All right, since this is your first time and there are no other records of you, you can leave after paying 5,000 yuan. Zhongqing heaved a sigh of relief. Wang Yingdi took out the money without another word. However, the moment she paid, she caught a glimpse of the information on the computer. It was as if she was struck by lightning. No. Xiaoqing would only be curious about the customers who went in. She's not the PR lady inside, the other party frowned. This information was copied from the online database of Imperial Pleasure Royal Court. It can't be wrong. Zhongqing, 23 years old. You signed the contract with the club yesterday. The club also provided you with some clothes and cosmetics, as well as 100,000 yuan. Today is your first day of work. I really don't know what to say to girls like you. What can't you do at such a young age? Why do you have to rely on that kind of business to earn money? Can it last long? Moreover, that kind of place is full of crooks and honest people. Many girls earn money but end up with dirty diseases. They harm themselves and others. The police looked displeased. Impossible. Wang Yingdi hurriedly said. She's not that kind of person. There must be a mistake. The other party looked at the young man with pity. Come and take a look. The lady in green is just an ordinary waitress. The lady in red is an ordinary hostess or singer. As for the yellow, you'll know if you look at the note below. Wang Yingdi was instantly petrified. Prostitute. Also, we've brought all the contracts. Because your girlfriend, on the top. You can see it. Hearing this, Wang Yingdi was left speechless. Zhongqing covered his face and began to sob. My younger brother needs to go to school, and I can't find a job. I really have no other choice. You know that I have to pay for living expenses when I stay at my aunt's place. I signed the contract out of curiosity, but I regretted it later. I wanted to leave, but they forced me. They said that the penalty for breaching the contract was 500,000. While Zhongqing was crying, one of the women suddenly said coldly, Xiaoqing, you can't be so heartless. The one who spoke was none other than Sister Yun. She rushed over and said angrily, when you first came here, I had advised you not to step into this line of work. Otherwise, one false step will lead to everlasting regret. Back then, you were the one who insisted on selling yourself. I even let you try being a hostess first. Instead, you gave up on yourself and signed that contract. You got the contract fee, but you had nothing to do with it. Also, if you hadn't set your eyes on that rich and powerful handsome guy, you would have gone to accompany someone else. Why are you acting pitiful now? Chapter 482. Sister Yun was really angry. She had fallen into this line of work because she had not met a good man when she was young. At that time, her boyfriend had cheated her and sent her to someone else's bed. When her parents found out, they were greatly shocked. One of them passed away and the other fell seriously ill. At that time, her friends did not want to see her because they thought she was an embarrassment. Her sister-in-law was young and had a lot of debt. She had no education and no skills. If she could not earn money at that time, her family would not be able to survive. That was why she embarked on this path of no return. But Xiaoqing was not like that. When she came, although the clothes she was wearing were not from a big brand, they were still worth a few hundred yuan. However, she looked like she was dying and insisted on signing the contract. In this day and age, many girls would go astray for luxury goods like bags and jewelry. Therefore, although she sighed at that time, she only advised her and did not forcefully stop her. After all, what did it have to do with her? But now, Xiaoqing refused to admit it. She wanted to reject it. She did not dislike it. However, this young man was too pitiful. One look and she could tell that he was infatuated. He was 10,000 times better than the men she met in the past. Such a person was deceived by such a woman. It was simply intolerable. When Sister Yun said that, Wang Yingdi's face twitched violently. When Zhongqing heard that, she quickly shook her head. She bit her lip and cried. It seemed that she could not refute, but there was a kind of beauty that made people sympathize with her. It was as if she had a lot of difficulties that she could not understand. Xiaoqing, is what she said true? Wang Yingdi's face turned green. Especially when he saw the woman in front of him look like she had been fiercely loved. It was as if the world was spinning. Yingdi, don't ask. I know I'm not good enough for you. Let's break up. After saying that, she ran out crying. Since the money had been paid, she could naturally be taken away. If Zhongqing wanted to leave, she would not be stopped by anyone. However, there were countless reporters. Even if she cried like a ghost, through the video, her family and friends could see it. Wang Yingdi clenched his fists. This was the girl he had always protected. He could not bear to lay a finger on her. If she said no, he would agree. If she had no money, he would think of ways to help her and give her gifts. He knew that Xiaoqing was a prideful person, so she would never complain that her parents were not living under someone else's roof. In his opinion, it was not a big deal. Her aunt and uncle did not treat her badly. At least she did not lack food and clothing. But now, she realized that she had used all her backbone on herself. When she was outside, she didn't even care about her face. He gritted his teeth and left. He didn't chase after her like he usually did. Zhongqing ran out of the police station and squatted on the ground crying for a while. However, she did not see the familiar figure behind her. She felt even more despair in her heart. After waiting for a long time, she staggered back to her aunt and uncle's house. However, the moment she entered the house, her appearance shocked everyone in the house. By the time she returned home, a few hours had already passed. Some news had already spread, and the TV was even replaying the live broadcast of the anti-pornography campaign. Zhongqing's figure could be seen in it. Scram! Take your brother and scram. Our family doesn't want a shameless woman like you. Her aunt was instantly enraged. She grabbed the suitcases of the three siblings and threw them out. Zhongqing was in utter despair. She clearly didn't do anything wrong on purpose, but she wanted to change. If it wasn't for that evil little sister and that stinky man, she wouldn't be in such a miserable state. Crying and complaining was completely useless. Chapter 483. Zhongqing's two younger brothers were still young. Naturally, they needed a place to stay. She had no choice but to call her other relatives and friends with grievances. However, this matter had already been made known to everyone in a short period of time. Her aunt had even informed her relatives and friends, but no one cared about her at all. After tossing and turning for half the night, Zhongqing remembered that her deceased mother had a younger half-brother who could be considered as her half-uncle. She quickly tried to contact him again. At this time, Jing Yunzhao had already fallen asleep in the space. The next morning, this matter spread throughout the entire Ning city. Even if Jing Yunzhao didn't understand politics, she knew that the Meng family would definitely be greatly affected. Previously, she asked Pak Yuan to investigate the Meng family because she wanted to use the power of public opinion. However, she also knew that if she didn't have a stronger backing than the Meng family, public opinion wouldn't help her. After all, the major media in Ning City would be pressured and no one would dare to expose anything about the Meng family. But now it was different. Meng Lin was caught on the spot, and the internal list was clear. Even if Mayor Meng didn't participate, Meng Lin had the name of his nephew. It was impossible for him to stay out of this matter. It had to be said that Jing Yunzhao also felt that Li Xiaoyun's move came at the right time. Otherwise, if she wanted to completely get rid of Meng Lin, the most effective way was to secretly kill him. She had to do it secretly, but it was also very dangerous. If she was not forced to do so, she would not put herself at the edge of the cliff. Li Xiaoyun was simply her godly assistant teammate. He always helped her at the most critical time. However, Jing Yunzhao also sighed in her heart. Even though she was grateful, she didn't like the feeling of relying on others, especially Li Xiaoyun. However, when Jing Yunzhao thought that Li Xiaoyun would appear in front of her to take credit, he was already so busy that she couldn't see him. As for those strange officers, Jing Yunzhao didn't see them again. While watching, Jing Yunzhao waited for the enrollment day. When Jing Yunzhao arrived at the school, she saw that everyone was looking at her differently. Jing Yunzhao, I heard that you caught a human trafficker during the new year. Is it true? As soon as she stepped into the classroom, a classmate rushed over and asked. Jing Yunzhao was stunned for a moment before she nodded. Her eyes swept over Xiao Haiqing and the others who were gathered together. God, you are too bold. Can you tell me what the human trafficker looks like? Is he very fierce? Another classmate asked with red eyes. In their eyes, human traffickers were as evil as drug dealers. If they weren't vicious, how could they even lay their hands on children? Jing Yunzhao was a little stunned. This was the first time she was treated so warmly by someone. Oh, I know. No wonder they can deceive children. A female classmate nodded excitedly. The next second, she said, I have a sister who said that she saw you on the road. She also said that you caught up with the car alone. Jing Yunzhao, how did you do it? It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. If it were me, I would be so scared that my legs would go soft. I wouldn't dare to catch up. The classmate next to her was very cooperative. Jing Yunzhao found that most of the classmates who surrounded her were girls. Most of the boys looked at her from afar, but their faces were serious and full of admiration. Did she inadvertently get the attention of her classmates? Chapter 484. You know, although her reputation is getting better and better, her classmates still have some deep-rooted alienation. This is the first time that she has been stared at by so many hot eyes. Jing Yunzhao, I heard from my father that the city will commend you, and there will be a bonus. Another classmate went on. Jing Yunzhao wasn't surprised. The school had also informed her that there was a high chance that she would be selected for this year's Bravery Award. They would even report about this without restraint. After all, this was a good thing that could motivate people's hearts. However, she wasn't the least bit interested in this kind of thing that could make her famous. Thank you for your concern, but let me in first, okay? Jing Yunzhao said in a slow tone. Several girls around nodded like chickens pecking rice. Okay, okay. As he said, he made a way in an instant. Jing Yunzhao walked towards her seat, and the girls from her class immediately followed behind her. Jing Yunzhao, can you tell us about what happened that day? We really want to know. When my relatives and friends heard that you saved the little boy and I were in the same class, they asked me to learn from you. Jing Yunzhao's eyes were wide open. She had indeed done something good, but it shouldn't have caused them to become like this, right? Although she fantasized that she could get along with her classmates in her previous life, now she is not a child, but she doesn't like the excitement so much. Besides, who can get used to such a sudden change? On one side, Xiao Haiqing saw Jing Yunzhao's embarrassed appearance and laughed. Su Chu's face was even redder. He rushed up and said with a smile, "Yes, cousin, I want to hear you say it again. I'm dying of curiosity recently." "Well, I remember you've asked me more than 3 times, haven't you?" Jing Yunzhao is speechless. The person who always called her to ask for confirmation was Su Chu, right? How can it be like having amnesia now? Su Chu smiled. "It's different. Now we are face to face. Let me hear it again. Maybe I can find the details I missed before." Su Chu looked like a fanatical fan. On the other hand, Xiao Haiqing sensibly kept quiet so as not to ruin the mood of this group of people. Ever since she killed the truck driver, her classmates would stay away from her whenever they saw her. The reason why they surrounded her this time was because she was Jing Yunzhao's deskmate. However, if she were to speak up, the atmosphere would definitely become awkward. "Xiao Haiqing, help us beg Jing Yunzhao. Everyone really wants to hear it. This is simply a heroic deed. I've lived for so long, but this is the first time I've been so close to a hero. If I miss such a good opportunity, it would be a pity to die." Xiao Haiqing was thinking when a female classmate suddenly said to her, "It's not an exaggeration to say that Jing Yunzhao is a hero, because the scene when she saved people was promoted in a small area. Someone had taken a video of the incident, but that person did not upload it to the internet and kept it as a private collection. They only knew about the situation from other people. It was said that not only was it 1 against 2, but because she had caught the 2 human traffickers, the police had taken out a human trafficker's den and rescued many children. 1 or 2 of them even knew the parents of lost children and knew the heart-wrenching feeling of children being stolen. Because it happened around them, they felt shocked and worshipped." Chapter 485. Xiao Haiqing was stunned. Before she could react, a few other classmates came to her for help. Her expression instantly became complicated. She never thought that one day she would be treated with such a normal gaze. It was no longer the disgust, fear, and shock. However, wasn't the memory of her classmates a little too short? Jing Yunzhao saw Xiao Haiqing's stunned look and couldn't help but laugh. "Yunzhao." Xiao Haiqing didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She glanced at everyone and said, "It's rare for me to have some presents. Shouldn't you do it for my sake?" Jing Yunzhao sighed and nodded helplessly. "Actually, it was a coincidence. I happened to be with the parents of the missing child. I saw them looking everywhere for the missing child, so I just wanted to help. I didn't expect to really see the culprit. I couldn't not help." "Yes, yes." The group nodded. The words "and then" seemed to be written all over their faces. "I saw them change their clothes and change their child's clothes before getting into a car. At that time, there were a lot of people. If I took a taxi, it was very likely that I would lose them, so I could only bite the bullet and chase after them." Jing Yunzhao continued to speak. Not only her surroundings, but the other people in the class were also very quiet. Everyone was obviously listening. When Jing Yunzhao finished speaking, there were even people who wanted to see the wound on her elbow. One by one, they expressed their sincere condolences. However, after such a commotion, everyone paid more attention to Xiao Haiqing and began to ask her about the car accident. At that time, everyone only knew that Xiao Haiqing was arrested for murder. They were very frightened. They couldn't even understand how an accident could make Xiao Haiqing become so fierce. But now, they found that Jing Yunzhao was a good person who could risk her life for a stranger. Xiao Haiqing, who had a very good relationship with her, shouldn't be a bad person. Therefore, for the first time, they asked for the reason. However, Xiao Haiqing's answer shocked everyone. All of them thought that it was just an accident. They didn't expect that the two drivers were actually murderers who had been bribed. In an instant, everyone looked at Xiao Haiqing differently. There was sympathy, worry, and even admiration. Jing Yunzhao and Xiao Haiqing spent the whole morning in the midst of everyone's enthusiasm. However, for them, it was as if they were sitting on pins and needles. After all, the enthusiasm of the students was a little too persistent. During class, everyone cast more glances at the teacher than they did at them. There were even groups of people who ran to the other classes to talk about their heroic deeds. I can't take it anymore. I'm just going to the toilet. Everyone is staring at me. So perverted. Xiao Haiqing wanted to cry but had no tears. She tugged at Jing Yunzhao and said speechlessly. The corner of Jing Yunzhao's mouth twitched. Up until now, I've already explained more than 80 questions to more than 30 students. In addition, I've received more than 100 small notes, Xiao Haiqing sighed. It's over. You've fallen for it. Why don't we skip class in the afternoon? Anyway, today will be self-study for the whole day. On the first day of school, the teachers were busy. Only the students were the most idle. I agree. Jing Yunzhao nodded without hesitation. She also felt that it was funny. She also knew in her heart that if it was really time for formal classes, the enthusiasm of the students would definitely not be like now. The reason why it was like this now was mainly because they had nothing to do. Moreover, most of these students wanted to get closer to her and cultivate feelings. It was all with good intentions. Chapter 486. After school at noon, Jing Yunzhao and Xiao Haiqing suddenly disappeared in front of everyone. Suchu looked at the two of them and forgot about her. She cried a lot on the phone and finally succeeded in meeting them at Yuling Tea House. Well, you said you were good friends. You didn't even care about me and ran away. That's too much. Humph. Suchu began to complain as soon as she arrived. Jing Yunzhao drank his tea and didn't say anything. Xiao Haiqing grinned and said, "Aren't you a good girl? We can't persuade you to not go to class, right?" Excuses. Suchu rolled her eyes and said, "Are you going to stay in the tea house for the whole afternoon?" "More or less." "It's quiet here," Jing Yunzhao said. "Anyway, we've already skipped class. How about I introduce someone to you? Recently, a cousin is staying at our house temporarily. My father asked her to work in the family's small clinic. My father is usually busy and can't take care of her. So, he wants me to visit her when I have time, in case she can't adapt to the environment," Suchu said. Speaking of this cousin, Suchu liked her very much. However, this cousin didn't seem to be in a good mood, so she was going to send some food to her later. "Cousin. You have so many cousins." Xiao Haiqing was speechless. After Jing Yunzhao recognized Grandpa Gon as his grandfather, Suchu called her cousin. She was not so close to Gon Jinchen, her biological cousin. "It's different. I haven't seen this cousin before. I heard from my father that her parents are gone. She used to live in her aunt's house, but her aunt didn't treat her well. She didn't give her living expenses and didn't help her with work. She even kicked her out. In short, she's very pitiful. Moreover, her deceased mother and my father weren't siblings, so they didn't contact each other before. Now that she's here, she must have been wronged," Suchu said with a smile. Hearing Suchu's words, Xiao Haiqing didn't object. "Anyway, it wasn't a bad thing to know one more person. Moreover, since he had nothing to do in the afternoon, he might as well go out for a walk. Jing Yunzhao also knew that the small clinic belonged to Suchu's family. Rather than saying that it belonged to her father, it was more accurate to say that it was a dowry that Grandpa Gon had given to Suchu's mother when she got married. The clinic was located near the medicine store that she often bought. It just so happened that she was going to buy some more medicinal seeds to replenish her stock, so it was on the way. The three of them agreed and set off immediately. However, considering that it was the first time they were meeting, they even brought some snacks for their cousin. You people from the Gon and Su families are really strange. Every one of you is related to the word medicine. Even my cousin who popped out of nowhere has a complete set of qualifications. Xiao Haiqing teased on the way. Gon Jinshan's parents had both studied medicine, and Suchu's mother was the old man's biological daughter. Naturally, she was also influenced by him. However, any profession that involved medicine would require some sort of certificate. Even if they were relatives, if they didn't have some ability, they wouldn't casually arrange for her to work. My cousin even graduated from a famous university, but it's Western medicine. My dad sent her over to learn some skills. Suchu laughed. Hearing the words famous university, the corner of Jing Yunzhao's mouth twitched subconsciously. Previously, Xiao Qing had mentioned that she graduated from a famous university. Now that she heard these words, her seemingly harmless face appeared in her mind. Jing Yunzhao rubbed the space between her eyebrows and sighed in relief. After a while, the three of them got off the bus at a nearby bus stop and walked towards the clinic. Chapter 487. However, as soon as the three of them approached, they found that there seemed to be an old man's roar coming from inside. Are you here to work, little girl? I think you're here to tear down the stage. I just left for a while. It's fine if you talk nonsense to the patient, but you even dare to grab medicine for the patient. Did I ask you to grab medicine? Do you have the qualifications to grab medicine now? You don't even know all the names of Chinese medicine, and you dare to do it. As soon as he said this, the three of them hurriedly walked in. Jing Yunzhao knew this Chinese medicine doctor. He was Grandpa Gon's junior brother. His medical skills were not bad. He usually saw patients in the clinic and had a good reputation in the neighborhood. Grandpa Chen, what's wrong with you? Suchu immediately ran over and said politely, don't be angry. If you have something to say it slowly. The doctor took a deep breath and turned his head. When he saw Jing Yunzhao, his face was a little better. Yunzhao girl is here too. Jing Yunzhao and the old man would make a house call every month. Sometimes they would come here to see patients, so he had a very good impression of Jing Yunzhao. Grandpa Chen. Jing Yunzhao called out before turning her head to look at her Biaojia, who was scolded to the point where she couldn't even raise her head, tears streaming down her face. But when his eyes fixed, his expression suddenly froze. With a dry cough, he turned his head and sighed speechlessly. Who else could this person be if not Xiao Qing? However, at this time, she had changed into decent clothes, not as exposed as before in the club. She had been staring at the ground and didn't look at people. She looked wronged again. Grandpa Chen, what's the matter? Suchu asked again. Her cousin seemed to be well behaved, and Grandpa Chen had been kind and gentle for decades. His temper was even better than her grandfather's. Many people who were interested in TCM came to learn from him, and no matter who it was, he had always been patient with them. Grandpa Chen was slightly younger than Grandpa Gon. He looked like a Maitreya Buddha. When he didn't speak, he always had a benevolent smile on his face. However, at this moment, he was so angry that he stomped his feet. Hey, it's clear that I've never seen such a child. Just now, an old lady on the opposite street had an old illness. I went to see her temporarily. She was alone in the clinic. At this time, a patient came. Do you know what she said? She told the person that I, a patient, had been cured several times, and now it had relapsed. I didn't have time to entertain others. Let the patient go to the Western medicine clinic next door to get a drip. I'm sure he will be cured. Chen said angrily. If he didn't know me and waited outside for a while, I wouldn't know. When Jing Yunzhao heard this, her face turned black. It's no wonder that Dr. Chen was so. That's not all. Just now, there was another person who came to get the medicine. The prescription was personally written by me. She didn't even remember the words, and in the end, she got the medicine by guessing. Jing Yunzhao was completely speechless after Chen Lao finished speaking. The old man's cursive calligraphy was not written deliberately. It was mainly because some prescriptions could not be exposed. Otherwise, this ability would be spread. Chen Lao's face was red. He didn't get angry often, so he was panting when he spoke. His eyes were round, and the veins on his forehead were exposed. It could be seen how angry he was. That's why I didn't recognize it. After she finished speaking, the tears that had accumulated in her eyes slid down, bringing with it a sense of beauty. However, the vision in front of him instantly cleared up and he saw Jing Yunzhao. His expression changed. Why are you here? She asked in confusion. Her voice was soft, full of grievance and fear. Jing Yunzhao glanced at her and said directly, do you know that your good intentions might kill someone? If the patient takes the medicine you gave him, it is very likely that there will be problems. If something happens, it will be a human life. Moreover, Elder Qin will also be implicated because of you. Do you really not understand, or are you pretending not to understand? Besides, this isn't your first day at the clinic, is it? Don't you know the rules after learning for so many days? Are you an idiot? Jing Yunzhao's words were harsh and direct. Zhong Qing was a medical graduate, so it was impossible for her not to know the dangers of 4-drip. It was also impossible for her not to know the difference between TCM and Western medicine. The reason why she made such a mistake was that she didn't care at all. Chapter 489. In Zhong Qing's eyes, no medical skills were more important than her own opinion. Now, she finally understood why this woman didn't have a job even though she came from such a good university. It wasn't because of the university, but because of her personality. If she could say such things in the clinic, she probably could have done the same thing when she was an intern. What Jing Yunzhao didn't know was that her guess was completely correct. During Zhong Qing's internship, she was in a big hospital in Ning City. At that time, she was full of fighting spirit and fantasy. She felt that she was an angel who saved people's lives. Therefore, no matter what kind of situation she encountered, she would rush forward. In her opinion, she was afraid of blood but could ignore it to save people. That was a very brave thing to do. However, in reality, other than being reckless, she was useless. When she saw the doctor using a large dose of medicine, she did not think about the patient's condition. She thought that it was dangerous and rushed forward to protect the patient without a second thought. When she saw that some people who did not have money could not undergo surgery because of it, she would run to the director's office and scold him, saying that the director had no medical ethics and only cared about money. In fact, not everyone should sacrifice for nothing. A surgery required equipment, blood volume, consumables, and a group of doctors and nurses who worked tirelessly. How could she not take money just because she said so? If everyone did as she did, the hospital would have been in a mess or completely closed down. By then, no one would be able to save anyone and no one would be able to survive. Also, if she really wanted to help people, there were many ways. She just happened to use the stupidest way. To put it nicely, she was kind. To put it bluntly, she was an idiot who thought that she was the Virgin Mary. Every day, she called for love in the center of the universe but did not take any practical action. At this time, after being scolded by Jing Yunzhao, Zhong Qing's little face twitched. "Little girl, why is it you again? Why do you have to make things difficult for me? I didn't do anything to let you down. Moreover, you were forced by that stinky man. I clearly wanted to help you. How can you accuse me?" Zhong Qing felt extremely wronged. Jing Yunzhao's mouth twitched. Playing the lute to a cow. "Cousin, you know her." Su Chu turned to ask Jing Yunzhao. However, when Zhong Qing heard Su Chu call her cousin, she immediately sobbed and said, "Yes, it was because of this little girl that I was misunderstood and was chased out by my aunt. Not only was I chased out, but I also implicated my 2 younger brothers." Su Chu frowned. Although she liked this cousin Zhong Qing, she had only known her for a few days. She did not know her character. What's more, she actually said such things today. She felt even more incomprehensible, and that little bit of affection she had for him was completely scattered. "Cousin Qing, I think you're thinking too much, right? My cousin is very good. She is also very powerful. Who can force her? Maybe you're thinking too much. Also, let's not talk about you and my cousin for the time being. You should apologize to Grandpa Chen first. Otherwise, I'll tell my father later." Su Chu said directly. Zhong Qing was dizzy by this cousin. After a while, she reacted. Jing Yunzhao was also Su Chu's cousin. How could it be so coincidental? "Well, why do you bully me?" Zhong Qing's understanding was obviously different from others. She looked like she was about to collapse and said. Chapter 490. Zhong Qing felt as if the world was about to collapse. She didn't understand why she had such a hard life. Her parents had passed away when she was in junior high school. She could only live with her younger brothers at her aunt's house. Her cousins always despised them for living under someone else's roof, so they always bullied her. She had good intentions every time, but they never understood. Everything she did was wrong. After going through such a terrible experience, she finally found a kind uncle who was willing to take her in. Just when she thought she could finally breathe a sigh of relief, she didn't expect Chu Chu, her cousin, to dislike her. However, Chu Chu wasn't like this before. This mean sister must have said something to her, so she misunderstood and started to dislike her. However, Chu Chu was her uncle's only daughter. Her uncle was very willing to listen to her. When the time came, he would probably chase her out, right? Chu Chu. Don't believe this little sister's words, okay? I really didn't do anything wrong, Zhong Qing continued. Su Chu suddenly blushed. Because she realized that she didn't seem to be on the same page as this cousin. On the way here, she even praised her cousin with Jing Yunzhao and Xiao Haiqing for being good-looking, gentle, and cute. She didn't expect that at this time, cousin Qing. Can you stop spouting nonsense? Apologize to Grandpa Chen, hurry up. You can't touch the herbs. Next time, you can't talk to others about TCM. Otherwise, I'll ask Mom and Dad to change your job. Su Chu hurriedly said. She was afraid that Zhong Qing didn't understand, so she deliberately raised her voice and repeated it carefully. Zhong Qing twitched. How can you do this, cousin? Then I'll apologize. Dr. Chen, I'm sorry. Please don't be angry. I saw that the family was in a hurry, so I got the herbs. I meant well. Zhong Qing didn't forget to continue explaining. Su Chu's face darkened. It was too embarrassing. How could Zhongqing be like this? However, when she thought about it carefully, although they had been together for 2 days, they rarely saw each other except for meals. It was no wonder she didn't understand. Old Dr. Chen listened to her apology, but she still did not know her mistake. He was so angry that he had nothing to say. He could only say, "Enough. You don't have to apologize. Since Chu Chu is here, why don't you follow her home? Don't mess around in the future. You're not suitable for this line of work. Otherwise, you'll get people killed sooner or later." Kill someone. Zhongqing trembled violently. That can't be. Why is everyone saying that? When she was doing her internship, the doctor had taught her the same thing, but she clearly had the heart of a doctor. I'm not leaving. She finally had a job, but her uncle didn't ask her to do much. He only asked her to study hard, but she still had a monthly income of 4,000 to 5,000 yuan. Scram. I won't keep you here. No matter what you say, it won't work. Old Chen was furious and said, "Clearly, you'd better tell your parents later. Just say that I can't teach this person. I'm a shallow learner. I don't have that ability." "Grandpa Chen, don't be like this. It's not your fault," Suchu hurriedly said. The old man was not young anymore. He had never suffered such grievances before. Zhongqing's eyes dimmed for a moment. Sure enough, no matter who it was, they wouldn't help her. Chu Chu was her cousin, but she always wanted to complain. Her elbow was always on the outside. Dr. Chen made up his mind. Suchu couldn't say anything more. If she pleaded for mercy, Dr. Chen might really get sick. She immediately dragged Zhongqing out. Chapter 491. Jing Yunzhao and Xiao Haiqing also followed behind. Suchu dragged them to a nearby coffee shop and sat down. "Cousin Qing, I can't help you with this matter. Think about how you're going to tell Dad later." Suchu was also a little angry in her heart. She just felt that since Zhongqing came all the way here to seek shelter, their family should be more polite, so she didn't be too direct. However, she really couldn't stand such a temperament. It was simply too aggrieving to talk to her. Jing Yunzhao's mood eased. It was not worth getting angry over such a person at all. What's more, maybe you were so angry that smoke was coming out of your 7 orifices, but the other party still thought that you were the most pitiful and sad person in the world. How could it be reasonable to talk to such a person who lived in her own world? As soon as Suchu spoke, Zhongqing felt wronged again. "Chu Chu, I'm sorry. I know that I owe your family now, but I will definitely pay it back in the future. As the old saying goes, 30 years in the East, 30 years in the West, 30 years in the East, 30 years in the West. I will definitely live a good life in the future. When the time comes, I will return all the things that I used from your family." When she said this, Suchu was stunned. She didn't mean that. "Also, Chu Chu, you are my cousin. I really want to be good for you, so you should stay away from this little sister. Don't be with her. One is marked by one's company. She will definitely lead you astray," Zhongqing said again. The corners of Jing Yunzhao's mouth curled up. Instead of being angry, he smiled. Xiao Haiqing was speechless. She looked at Suchu with sympathy. It was really torturous to have such a cousin. "Zhongqing, you're so unreasonable." Suchu's face was bitter and helpless. She turned to look at Jing Yunzhao. "Cousin, tell me, how did the two of you know each other?" She was very curious now. Jing Yunzhao smiled and replied, "I've met Miss Xiaoqing at Dixiang's royal court." Dixiang royal court. Dixiang. Xiao Haiqing and Su Chu shouted at the same time. Su Chu quickly asked, "That? Isn't that the brothel that was destroyed before? The case is still under investigation." "That's right," Jing Yunzhao said casually. After that, he saw Zhong Qing glaring at him angrily, but Jing Yunzhao didn't seem to see half of it. He continued, "Miss Xiaoqing was the public relations lady inside at that time. My friend and I went to take a look and happened to meet her pestering and insisting on drinking with her. When we saw that she was about to be taken away by her boss, we kindly helped her." "Xiaoqing, don't you think so? I told you, I didn't do it willingly," Zhong Qing said. Embarrassment was written all over his face. "We don't know about that. I only remember that you were a little baffled and a little delusional. Maybe you took a fancy to my friend and wanted to take the opportunity to make a move. Unfortunately, there are some men you can't touch," Jing Yunzhao said very straightforwardly. He paused, stirred the coffee, and said, "But then again, wasn't Miss Xiaoqing caught? She should have been caught red-handed when she was having sex with a man, right?" Jing Yunzhao never thought of saving face for Zhong Qing, because it was useless to save face for some people. What's more, he was just stating a very standard fact. When Zhong Qing heard that, her cute face was full of anger. "How can you be so vicious? How did I offend you? You want to know? Okay, then I'll tell you. Firstly, young Master Li is my friend. You pestered him and made him unhappy, so I was in a bad mood. Secondly, you thought you were smart and thought that I was young and easy to take advantage of. Thirdly, you kept saying that I had a vicious heart, so I wanted to show you how vicious I was. Fourthly, I just couldn't stand you. But seeing you again today, I have to add one more thing, and that is you almost implicated a good doctor. A person like you is a scourge if we keep you around." Chapter 492. After Jing Yunzhao finished a few sentences in succession, Zhong Qing's expression was a little distorted. Su Chu and Xiao Haiqing were already shocked. They didn't expect that Zhong Qing, who looked innocent and harmless, was actually a public relations lady in Imperial Pleasure Royal Court. Imperial Pleasure Royal Court was now a household name. Huaning County was so close to Ning City, so the news was naturally more clear. Even some 3-year-old children knew that a group of bad guys had been arrested. It could be seen how deep its influence was. At present, there were reports everywhere, saying that there were thousands of male and female public relations quotas in this club, and a large part of them were engaged in sex transactions. Such a bad place had been destroyed, and countless people had been watching, waiting for the final judgment. At the same time, the young ladies there had also received a lot of attention. Some reporters specifically followed some of them. It was understandable that some of them had nowhere else to go, but some of them did it purely for the money. There were even some men and women who entered the industry without telling their parents, even though their family background was not bad. When the anti-pornography video was released, many families fell into a nightmare. Only then did they realize that they did not know their children at all. But although this matter had caused a lot of noise, Su Chu never thought that the people around her were also. That small face was indistinguishable from blue and red. "Zhong Qing, you told my dad before that your aunt drove you out of the house. In fact, you did something wrong and she found out?" Su Chu asked. No wonder she would find her father. Although Zhong Qing's parents were gone, there would be a lot of relatives and friends. In fact, her father and Zhong Qing's mother had no feelings at all and had never contacted each other. In any case, she shouldn't have found them. It must be that others knew her situation, so they didn't want to let her in at all. Although she also knew about the incident in Imperial Pleasure Royal Court, she didn't know much about it. She didn't want to check this cousin. She always felt that the three of them were very pitiful, it's clear that it's not like this. My aunt never liked me and never believed me. When she saw me in trouble, not only did she not comfort me, but she also stepped on me. Zhongqing said again. Suchu's worldview had collapsed. It was obvious that she had done something wrong, but she still wanted others to comfort her. At this time, shouldn't she apologize and repent? Even if they didn't change it, they couldn't just blame it on someone else, right? Suchu sighed. She couldn't accept the fact that there would be another woman in the family in the future. She said, "Cousin, you should move out of our house." "What did you say?" Zhongqing panicked. "If you move out of our house, there are so many jobs out there. You also have a degree. You can find a decent job with your own ability, right? There are many cheap houses for rent in the county. You won't have to sleep in the open," Suchu said clearly. Zhongqing's two younger brothers were twins. They were 15 years old and used to study in Serene City. However, now that they were staying at her house, they had no choice but to transfer their school records over. In order to take care of them more conveniently, they had specially chosen number 1 high school. However, they were 1 year younger than her. Choo-choo. Are you going to treat me like this too? I thought your family was a good person, but I didn't expect you to be so vicious. Zhongqing shouted angrily. The people around them couldn't help but look over. Suchu was only a little girl, after all. She was a little embarrassed by Zhongqing's shout. "I've already said it. I won't take it back. I'll give you 3 days to move out. Otherwise, even your 2 brothers won't be able to stay." Chapter 493. Suchu had always been easy to talk to, but she was not stupid enough to be a good person. Moreover, it would have been fine if Zhongqing could distinguish between right and wrong, but she always looked like she was being bullied. Even if Zhongqing really did succeed one day, no matter how good her parents were to her, they might still feel that she had been wronged and humiliated in their house during this period of time. After Suchu finished speaking, she went back to the clinic with Jing Yunzhao to help. Zhongqing was still in a state of confusion and anger. After a while, he was about to rush out of the coffee house with a pair of red eyes. However, before he could reach the door, he was stopped. "Miss, you haven't paid yet," the waiter quickly said. When Zhongqing heard that, she immediately raised her voice. "Who are you calling a miss? I think you're the one who looks like a miss." The waiter was stunned by the scolding, but because Zhongqing was a customer, he swallowed his anger and said again, "I'm sorry, I just wanted to tell you that you haven't paid for your coffee. I came in with 3 high school students, yes, but the little girls said that you were going Dutch, so you only paid a part of it," the waiter said again. When Zhongqing heard that, she felt that Suchu was more and more narrow-minded. She even felt that Jing Yunzhao was indeed not a good person, for he had led such a gentle little girl astray. "I know. I'll pay," Zhongqing said angrily and was about to take out money from her pocket, but when she took out her wallet, she was dumbfounded. She saw that it was empty, and there were only a few coins in it. Only then did she remember that she had given all her pocket money to her 2 younger brothers when she went out in the morning. In an instant, she was very embarrassed, and her face was as red as a shrimp. After all, this cafe was not as good as the shops in the city. It was only of a middle-low standard, so a cup of coffee and some snacks was less than 50 yuan. She did not even have 5 yuan at the moment, let alone 50 yuan. What should she do? The waiter was close, so he naturally saw the things in her wallet. He could not help but curl his lips. She was so arrogant just now, but now she could not even take out a few dozen yuan. And judging from her appearance just now, could it be that she wanted those high school students to pay? How thick-skinned. Zhongqing's face was flushed red. A single cent was enough to stump a hero. If she did not pay the money, the other party would not let her leave. However, this was Huaning County. No one could help her unless she went to the clinic next door to look for Dr. Chin. However, that Dr. Chin was obviously a stingy person. When the time came, not only would he not help her, he might even scold her. Why should she suffer such humiliation? Miss, are you rich or not? The waiter was also annoyed. Just now, he had deliberately avoided the word miss, but now he couldn't help but call her out sarcastically. Zhongqing was so angry that he was about to cry. Do you know how to treat your guests? I just forgot to bring money out. Do you have to insult my mother like this? At most, I'll wash the dishes for you. Miss, do you think this is a TV drama? You don't have enough money to wash the dishes. The waiter was speechless. There was a specially hired auntie in the restaurant. What would the auntie do if she was asked to wash the dishes? Then what do you suggest we do? Anyway, I have no money now. What do you want? Zhongqing asked again. Don't you even have a friend? The phone you're using is a couple's model. Can't you ask your boyfriend to come over and pay for it? Besides, you should have a bank card, right? Our shop can also use it. You're an adult, and the clothes on you should be worth a few hundred yuan. Do you have to rely on us for a few dozen yuan? Miss, we're a small business, the waiter said again. Don't say any more. I'll pay for her. Chapter 494. Less than 2 seconds after the waiter finished speaking, 100 yuan appeared in front of him. He saw a man put the money at the front desk and directly dragged Zhongqing out. Before leaving, he did not forget to say, "Keep the change." Before Zhongqing could react, she already felt the cold wind outside. She looked up in surprise. She saw a man about 24 or 25 years old standing in front of her. He looked handsome, but he was not very tall. He was surprisingly thin, but he was very strong. His grip on her wrist hurt a little. You. Thank you, Zhongqing hurriedly said. The man wore glasses and looked very strong. There seemed to be a very strange smell on his body, but it was not bad. He glanced at her and said, I just heard your conversation with those little classmates. You want to move out, right? Zhongqing was stunned for a moment, then quickly nodded. That should be right, in that case, it's just right. There are extra rooms where I live. You can come and stay. You just have to pay 500 yuan a month. Are you willing? The man said again. Zhongqing knew in her heart that 500 yuan was not a lot. When she was in Serene City, she also thought of renting a house, but even if she rented with a few people, the rent would be about 1,000 yuan. It would be cheaper if she chose a house in the suburbs that was more chaotic and inconvenient. But why are you helping me? Zhongqing's face was slightly red, and her round face was even more adorable. It's a little lonely living alone, and I'm not good at housework. After all, you are a girl. You should be able to save me a lot of trouble. If you are willing, I can drive you to pack your things now. Of course, if you are not willing, I won't force you, the man replied. A trace of surprise flashed in Zhongqing's heart, but she felt that she should not be too direct, so she pursed her lips and thought about it awkwardly. After a while, she said, All right then. But I'll have to trouble you to accompany me to move my things. Oh right, what's your name? Wenhong, the man said simply. He did not say much, but his eyes flashed with malice. The man's car was at the door. The car was almost brand new, and its price should be in the hundreds of thousands. Although it was not a luxury car, in a small county, such a car was better than the average family car. Zhongqing looked at the car in a daze for a while, but quickly got in. At this moment, Jing Yunzhao, who was still in the clinic not far away, saw this scene and frowned. Who is that man? Well, have you seen him? Xiao Haiqing saw Jing Yunzhao's strange expression, and looked at it, and asked quickly. Su Chu quickly ran out of the door to take a look. The next moment, she shook her head. I've never seen him before. Maybe he's a relative of Zhong Qing's father. Looking at Zhong Qing's happy appearance, he should have found the next home. Chu Chu, is there no one in your house now? Jing Yunzhao reminded him, and then said, it's best to go back, in case something is missing. It was not that Zhong Qing was a thief, but she felt that Zhong Qing was the kind of person who would take something and say that he would definitely return it in the future. But Grandpa Chen sighed. Su Chu was a little troubled. The clinic was a little busy. Previously, in order to let Zhong Qing come over to work, his father had specially sent his former apprentice to his grandfather's side. You and Hai Qing can go over. I'll stay here, Jing Yunzhao said. Chapter 495. Compared to those trivial matters, Jing Yunzhao preferred to stay in the clinic. Even if she sat there for a whole day, she wouldn't feel tired at all. Instead, she would be in a good mood. Moreover, even if she went to the Su family, she wouldn't be able to help much. After all, Xiao Haiqing was there. That Zhong Qing couldn't really take advantage of Su Chu. After Jing Yunzhao said that, Xiao Haiqing and Su Chu both nodded in agreement. Seeing that the couple drove away, they quickly hailed a taxi and followed. Yunzhao, girl, go and sort out those herbs. See what's missing so that I can have someone send it over, Dr. Chen directly instructed, his expression returning to normal. Every time Jing Yunzhao was there, the day's work would go very smoothly. Her eyesight was good, and her ability to identify herbs was not inferior to this old man's. She even seemed to know more and more things now. Many times, she could solve some difficult and miscellaneous diseases for him. Even Senior Gon praised her and admitted that she was a genius. Jing Yunzhao's attitude was calm. She walked over to the medicine cabinet and checked them one by one according to the rules. Grandpa Chen, there are many herbs in your medicine cabinet that are mixed together. Jing Yunzhao was shocked when she checked. Logically speaking, Dr. Chen had been practicing medicine for decades, and this clinic had always been under his management. It was impossible for such a thing to happen. However, the fact was that the herbs in these medicine cabinets were very messy. It was as if someone didn't know the herbs. Thinking of this, Jing Yunzhao's mouth twitched. This was probably the result of Zhong Qing's filling of the herbs, right? Old Master Qin came over to take a look and was speechless. After a long time, he said, you and Chu Chu should stay away from that neurotic girl. Don't be led astray by her. With that kind of character, you'll suffer a big loss sooner or later. The old doctor's words were actually more serious. However, because he was an old man and Jing Yunzhao was a child in his eyes, his tone was much more restrained. Jing Yunzhao nodded in agreement. She tidied up the medicine cabinet. When she was almost done, Xiao Haiqing and Su Chu had already rushed home. They were still a step behind Zhong Qing, so when they arrived, they saw that Zhong Qing had already packed everything in the house. This house was specially prepared by Su Chu's parents for their guest, Zhong Qing. Considering that she was a girl, they even bought a lot of decorations and placed them inside. It looked very comfortable. However, these things belonged to the Su family after all. Perhaps only someone like Zhong Qing would be able to prepare to transfer them all without any pressure. Put it down. Zhong Qing, you only brought a box when you came, but now you've taken so many things from our house. How can you be so thick-skinned? Su Chu immediately rushed over and scolded. Chapter 496. Suchu's roar made the room quiet. Xiao Haiqing looked at her in shock. He thought that Suchu was a weak and soft girl, but now it seemed that even the soft-hearted people would explode when they met Zhongqing. Well, I just want to tell my uncle and aunt that I didn't do anything wrong, Zhongqing said again. Suchu was upset and angry. She was completely angry. She was right again. Why did she always say that she was right? She had never seen such an unreasonable person in her life. She took herself as the center and did whatever she wanted to do for her own interests. She took advantage of others and thought that she had suffered a lot. Suchu glared at her angrily. She raised her hand and picked up the vase on the table that was about to be packed by Zhongqing. She smashed it directly in Zhongqing's direction. Get out of here. Bang! With a sound, the vase broke into pieces at Zhongqing's feet. Xiao Haiqing raised her eyebrows. I say, just call the police directly. Although she left a note, she didn't get the consent of the owner. That's stealing. When Suchu heard this, she nodded quickly. She picked up her mobile phone and dialed the number without saying a word. Zhongqing panicked when she saw it, and the man said in time, "Little sister, I will ask her to return the money to you. In addition, I won't bring more things here. I think let's forget it." No way. Why should we forget it? Suchu's nose was sour. When had she been wronged like this since she was a child? After Suchu finished speaking, the phone had been connected. She quickly organized her words and said what had happened. When Zhongqing saw it, her face was pale with fright. She didn't dare to think about other things. She dragged the man and ran away. Looking at her back, Suchu curled her lips. She sat down on a pair of messy ground and rubbed her hair. In an instant, the neat appearance suddenly became messy. She opened her mouth and said to Haiqing, "What are you doing? The police will come in a moment. When they see our family like this, they will have a good time." Xiao Haiqing's mouth twitched. Why didn't I see that you had such a rogue side before? Weren't you the one who told cousin? The best way to deal with a scoundrel is to be more of a scoundrel than her. She just took our money and didn't pay it back. She turned the house upside down and even tried to touch me. If I didn't call the police in time, she might have done something even more serious. Haiqing, don't you think so? Suchu sobbed. Her tears came as she wished, and her acting was extremely straightforward. Xiao Haiqing smacked her lips and pointed at the two boys upstairs. Have you forgotten that there are other people in the house? Suchu was stunned, but the next second, she said, Zhongqing has a criminal record. These two are Zhongqing's younger brothers. No one will believe what they say. Suchu's voice was not soft. The two boys who looked exactly the same looked even worse. They secretly clenched their fists and couldn't help but worry. Not long after, the police arrived. When they entered the house and saw Suchu's eyes were swollen like peaches and she was crying so hard, they were shocked. In addition, there were broken vases in the house, and things were strewn everywhere. They immediately became serious. After taking some photos and asking a few questions, the police uncle said, "The two of you, don't worry. We will catch the culprit. The two of you better contact the adults. If you encounter such things in the future, you should inform your parents first." Fortunately, the culprit is a woman and didn't mean to hurt anyone. Suchu heaved a sigh of relief when she heard this. She was also worried, but when she thought of Zhongqing, she suddenly became angry again. Her cheeks were round and puffy. Chapter 497. After Zhongqing dragged the man away, she regretted it not long after. At this time, the man had already sent her to the vicinity of the police station. "I'll bring you in to explain to the police. It'll be fine after you return the money. But..." I don't have any money on me. Zhongqing felt wronged. Don't you have me? The man smiled, and a trace of gentleness appeared on his slightly gloomy face. Zhongqing was stunned for a moment, then her face turned slightly red. Thank you. If it weren't for you, I really wouldn't know what to do. I would definitely be reduced to the streets now. Wenhong smiled and didn't say much. He brought her out of the car in a gentlemanly manner and entered the police station. When the two of them left the Su family's house, they didn't go far at all. They only followed the police car all the way back to the police station when they saw the police officers enter the house. Therefore, they arrived at the right time. They hurriedly explained the situation and repeatedly assured the police officers before giving up. Although Zhongqing had taken thousands of yuan from the Su family, she was still a relative after all. She had stayed at home for a period of time before, so the punishment would not be very heavy. If Zhongqing had been arrested and brought back to the police station, she would at most be detained for 2 days and educated. Now that she had returned the money with a very good attitude and kept apologizing, the police saw her sincerity, so they did not pursue the matter. However, it made Suchu so angry that she was about to die. This Zhongqing was too annoying, but she didn't do anything outrageous. It was impossible to stop her from appearing in front of her. Fortunately, she had chased her out. Otherwise, she would not be able to eat if she had to face such a self-righteous person every day. At this time, Zhongqing followed Wenhong to the place where she lived. After taking a look, Zhongqing was a little disappointed. This location was better, but it felt a little old. It had 2 floors and could be considered a private house. However, because it was in the city, the price of this house would not be low. As the owner, if this house was demolished one day, he should be able to get a few million yuan in compensation. However, now was not the time to talk about money, and she would be living here for a long time in the future. Although the Su family was not a wealthy family, it was still considered a wealthy family. The Su family's house was even bigger and brighter. It could be considered a small villa. Even the aunt's house that Zhongqing used to live in was very stylish, unlike the one in front of him, which looked a little gloomy. The courtyard of this house was surrounded by high walls, and the whole house looked like a big box. It felt airtight when it was closed, and the sunlight could only shine on the roof. As soon as he entered, the whole courtyard was dark, and it looked a little cold. The room was relatively clean, and everything in the house was very complete. However, there seemed to be some old items for the elderly, but she didn't see anyone after looking around. Wenhong, is there anyone else in your family? Zhongqing could not help but ask. Wenhong glanced at him and said, this house was originally where my grandfather's cousin lived. Now that he was taken away by his children, it's not good for such a big house to be empty, so he asked me to come over and stay for a while to increase the liveliness. Zhongqing nodded in understanding. Then what do you do now? He asked again. I usually research and develop some things for the company. The basement is where I often work, so you don't usually go in. As for the other places, you can use them as you wish. Wenhong reminded him. A trace of disappointment flashed across Zhongqing's eyes. When she saw Wenhong, she thought that he should be quite special, but now it seemed that he was similar to her previous boyfriend. He was very ordinary. Chapter 498. However, Zhongqing had nowhere to go at the moment, so she naturally agreed to Wenhong's words. At night, she even prepared a table of sumptuous dishes with a fawning attitude. In the space where they were alone, the atmosphere became ambiguous. Zhongqing's face flushed red at the same time, and her words became gentler with each passing moment. Zhongqing was no longer the innocent little woman she used to be. Especially when she thought about how she had given her first time to a playboy like young Master Meng, she couldn't help but feel a little indignant. Now that a man and a woman were alone in the same room every day, it was naturally a raging fire. After a few days, their relationship became even closer. At this time, Zhongqing's two younger brothers had also officially entered the school. After Suchu told her parents about Zhongqing's actions, both of them were shocked and speechless. However, they didn't show any intention of asking Zhongqing to stay back. After all, in their opinion, it was incomprehensible for a girl to take the initiative to sign a contract to sell her body at a clubhouse, no matter what her intentions were. Moreover, Suchu's father and Zhongqing's mother didn't have any feelings for each other. Zhongqing was an adult, so she couldn't die just because she was kicked out of the family. Therefore, both of her parents agreed with Suchu's approach. However, Zhongqing's two younger brothers were still underage and relatively innocent. If they were inexplicably kicked out, it was almost equivalent to destroying the two of them. Therefore, Father Su only treated it as a good deed and spent a lot of money to get them into number 1 middle school according to the previous plan. Number 1 middle school was the best school in the county, and the school selection fee wasn't a small amount. Suchu was still a little unwilling in her heart. If it were her, she wouldn't send the two brothers to such a good school. After all, who knew if the two of them were the same as Zhongqing? When the time came, not only would they have wasted money, but they would also be accused of abuse. Wouldn't their family die of injustice? At this time, the school cafeteria was crowded with people. Jing Yunzhao and the others sat together and chatted happily. At a table not far away, several high school boys were sitting. Because two of them looked exactly the same, it was very eye-catching. Suchu frowned slightly. Yunzhao, why do I feel like I've been bumping into those two brothers these 2 days? What do they mean? There was nothing special about the places they usually went to. Most of the time, they were in school, but there were always some coincidental encounters. Ever since Xiao Haiqing started learning martial arts from Jing Yunzhao, she would go to the field every afternoon to exercise. Jing Yunzhao would also follow her these 2 days. He would sit at the side and read quietly. However, every time this happened, the two brothers would appear and play basketball with a few classmates enthusiastically. It was normal for boys to appear in the field, but these two had just transferred over. They had integrated into the environment too quickly. Instead of saying that they were invited to participate, it was more like they were shameless enough to join in on the fun. Now, it was rare for them to eat in the cafeteria, and the Zhong brothers were actually within 10 meters of them. It was too much of a coincidence. Either Zhongqing asked them to keep an eye on you and me so that we won't do anything bad, or they want to get close to you, the campus belle, Jing Yunzhao said lightly. The two brothers of the Zhong family were called Zhong Liang and Zhong Yi. Their grades weren't very good in the past, otherwise, they wouldn't have needed the Su family to pay. The Su family was considered a scholarly family and valued education very much. They only felt that the two brothers didn't have a stable life in the past. Now that they had stabilized and were under the influence of a good school, there should be a possibility of improvement. That was why they put in so much effort. They were very responsible. Chapter 499. Jing Yunzhao's words still had some reasoning behind them. Zhongqing always thought that everyone in the world was evil. She might even want her two younger brothers to keep an eye on her. It would be best if they could find evidence that she was not a good person. When the time came, they would educate Suchu well and keep her away from her source of infection. Furthermore, when the two brothers were talking, many of the surrounding students were listening attentively. Sometimes, their eyes would look at Suchu and her without leaving a trace. They must be using the two of them as a gimmick to attract people's attention. Suchu curled her lips. She and Zhongqing are indeed biological siblings. When I think about how my father arranged for them to go to this school, my lungs are about to explode from anger. Weren't you the one who showed off your cousin's friendliness and your cousin's sensibility to us? Jing Yunzhao said deliberately. Cousin, at that time, I thought that they were guests from afar, so I only thought of them in a positive light. Suchu was about to die of grievance. Jing Yunzhao smiled. She understood Suchu's feelings very well. At this moment, she was eating and listening to the movements around her. After calming down, she really heard the conversation of the students at the table. The two of you say every day that you are Suchu's cousins, but why haven't you come up to greet her? You even said that Suchu doesn't like you. I really don't believe it. After all the students in our school know that Suchu is the most approachable on the campus belle list, a boy said. It's true. My sister was kicked out by her. You definitely can't imagine how she cried and howled in front of the police. Zhongliang said. Why do I feel that the person you are talking about is a shrew? How could it be Suchu? Suchu is the goddess in the hearts of many boys. Be careful. If you gossip, someone will definitely find trouble with you later. The classmate next to him immediately reminded him kindly. Zhongliang did not mind at all and continued, I'm not gossiping. Let me show you this. As he spoke, he took out his mobile phone from his head pocket. This school did not allow students to bring their phones to school. However, most of the students in No. 1 middle school had a good family background, and many of them lived in the dormitory. Thus, there were many places where they would use their phones. Therefore, most of the time, the teachers would turn a blind eye to it. As long as it was not used in class, they would not take it seriously. Zhongliang's phone was old, but it still had all the necessary functions. He placed his phone in front of them and all of a sudden, their mouths fell open in shock. It's really Suchu, but she's not crying or howling. It's just a normal family photo. At most, she's a little more casual. She's not dressed as beautifully and neatly as usual, someone denied. The two Zhong brothers snorted and looked at each other. In the next moment, Zhong Yi said with a wicked smile, do you want other private photos of Suchu? I know that she has a lot of beautiful pajamas. She often wears pajamas at home and walks around. As soon as he said this, the boys' eyes lit up. That's not good, right? They looked hesitant but somewhat expectant. Hee, what's not good about it? It's not like it's. Anyway, we are in a favorable position. As long as you ask, we can get any photo you want. The two brothers looked excited and then said, but if our cousin finds out, she'll definitely be unhappy. Maybe she'll even kick us out. There's still some risk. So, the minimum price for each photo is 20 yuan. If there's a particularly clear, beautiful, or rare photo, 100 yuan is non-negotiable. Are you guys interested? Chapter 500. As soon as the two brothers said that, the students at the same table were a little tempted. After a while, they began to haggle the price. Jing Yunzhao heard all of this, and her face was gloomy and scary. Because of the previous New Year, Suchu had been living in the Su family's house and did not move to the warm heart garden where the three of them originally lived. In addition, Suchu's parents were very busy. She was worried that the two brothers would ruin the house, so she wanted to stay at home for a while. However, she did not expect the two to have such thoughts. At this time, Suchu still had a puzzled look. Cousin. Are you not feeling well? Why do you look so pale? With a paw sound, Jing Yunzhao put down her chopsticks. I was disgusted by some dirty things. Jing Yunzhao stood up and walked in the direction of the Zhong brothers. Cousin. Suchu called out from behind. she did not know what happened. At this time, the two brothers, Zhongliang and Zhongyi, turned their heads at the same time. After seeing Jing Yunzhao, a trace of disgust flashed in their eyes. The two identical faces turned their heads in disdain at the same time, as if they did not know each other. The other students at the table were stunned and felt a little guilty. After all, they also knew that Jing Yunzhao and Su Chu had a very good relationship. However, after thinking carefully, although the two tables were close to each other, the surroundings were quite noisy. Their words just now should not have been heard, right? Only then did they feel a little relieved. After seeing Jing Yunzhao, two students called out as if they were familiar with her. "Hello, senior." Jing Yunzhao was a popular figure in the entire grade. Although they were a year younger than Jing Yunzhao, they had heard a lot about Jing Yunzhao. Moreover, Jing Yunzhao recently helped the police solve a case of human traffickers and was praised by the school. It was difficult not to know her. Moreover, Jing Yunzhao's name was also on the school beauty list. However, because her temperament was cold and not to be trifled with, she was not as likable as Su Chu. Jing Yunzhao glanced at these students, curled the corner of his mouth, and snorted. The next second, she picked up the plate in front of her and smashed the half-eaten food on Zhongliang and Zhongyi's heads. In an instant, the rice grains and vegetable juice were all over his hair, making him look oily and disgusting. "You." Although those students didn't know why Jing Yunzhao was doing this, when they thought of what they had just said, they were somewhat lacking in confidence. They said weakly, "What are you doing?" The Zhong brothers, on the other hand, had been brainwashed by Jing Yunzhao. Now that they were covered in food, the boy's pride instantly took over his brain. He immediately stood up, picked up the other plates on the table, and was about to attack Jing Yunzhao. Jing Yunzhao glanced at them and coldly swept her gaze over them. She raised her arm to block them, directly covering their faces. She even ravaged them fiercely. When the plates fell, the two men's nostrils were stained with rice grains. It was very disgusting. "Jing Yunzhao, what my sister said wasn't wrong at all. You're not a good thing, and you even led my Biaojia astray." Zhong Yi was furious, pointing at Jing Yunzhao as he cursed. Jing Yunzhao reached out to pry his fingers away, and in an instant, she kicked his lower abdomen. In the next moment, she didn't hold back at all, and without a second word, she gave him a good beating. The surroundings were suddenly in a panic. There were many rumors about Jing Yunzhao on campus. It wasn't the first time she had hit someone in school. A girl like her was naturally one of a kind. It was just that many people had only heard of Jing Yunzhao's violence in the past. But now, they really saw her waving her fists. Looking from afar, they felt goosebumps all over their bodies, not to mention the people who were beaten up by her. There were quite a lot of people in the cafeteria, each and every one of them looking on in shock, not knowing what to say. However, there were a few female classmates of Jing Yunzhao's who had a look of worship on their faces as they said, "Even though I don't know why Jing Yunzhao would hit someone, I still think that she looks so handsome." Chapter 501. On the side, Xiao Haiqing was speechless when she heard a classmate say such infatuated words. She looked at Su Chu and deliberately teased, "Your cousin is being beaten up. Do you want to go up and help?" "No way." Su Chu instantly refused, "Serves them right. My cousin never hits people indiscriminately." Not long after, Jing Yunzhao released her grip, but the two brothers were already lying on the ground with bruised noses and swollen faces. Their noses were bleeding profusely, and when they opened their mouths, they actually spat out a tooth at the same time. I want to tell the teacher. Jing Yunzhao, you are too lawless." Zhongliang pointed at Jing Yunzhao and cried. It was hard to have a good impression of a big boy with tears and snot mixed together. Okay, find the teacher. I think it's best to invite the principal over and ask what the two of you did. After saying that, Jing Yunzhao turned to look at the students who were sitting at the same table as the two brothers and sneered, "Do you know the nature of the act of buying the photos just now?" Photos. Su Chu and Xiao Haiqing were stunned. They had been sitting with Jing Yunzhao all this time. How could they not know about the photos? Those students were just misled by the Zhong brothers, so Jing Yunzhao didn't do anything to them. If they really didn't admit it later, she wasn't afraid. She could just teach them a lesson one by one to make them remember. When Jing Yunzhao said that, the students' faces changed drastically. You heard it. Jing Yunzhao's hearing was too good, right? Although their voices weren't soft just now, they deliberately restrained themselves. What's more, many people next to them were chatting much louder than them. Not to mention that there was a table in the middle. Even if they were sitting at the next table, they might not be able to hear it clearly, right? We were just joking. The students weren't stupid and quickly explained in a low voice. They were just curious and didn't have any bad intentions. Besides, Zhongliang and Zhongyi only said that they would take out some pajamas photos. They also had a bottom line. Joking. Do you want me to try joking with you too? Jing Yunzhao's cold voice made people's scalps tingle. She stared at those people and said, "Don't blame me for not reminding you. If you see the teacher telling the truth later, the teacher might really think that you were joking. However, he has already sent the photos in his phone to you, right? If you search them one by one and check them, it will be clear at a glance." The students were so scared that their faces turned pale. They clutched their phones in their pockets and panicked. They were just ordinary students. The cutoff score for a school like number 1 middle school was very high. They had put in a lot of effort in order to study here. Their families also had high hopes for them. If they were caught with the photos on the phone, the teacher would definitely inform their parents. The students looked at each other, their eyes flickering. They weren't stupid. When Zhongliang and Zhongyi took out the photos just now, they already felt that something was wrong. They were just a little wishful thinking. After all, several of their classmates were present. If only one of them showed that he didn't dare to buy it, it would naturally appear that he was a maverick and not like a man. However, it was different now. They could tell the severity of the matter. Looking at their attitudes, Jing Yunzhao knew that they had made a decision in their hearts. At this time, the two brothers, Zhongliang and Zhongyi, wanted to cry but had no tears. They were afraid and angry. Chapter 502. The school's leaders were always late. By the time they arrived, Zhongliang and Zhongyi had already been beaten to the point of being unable to stand. Jing Yunzhao sat by the side, not running or hiding. She waited calmly. Looking at her, it was as if she wasn't the one who had beaten them up. The dean felt a headache coming on when he saw Jing Yunzhao. She was clearly a good student, but she had caused a lot of trouble. Moreover, she was a girl. He didn't know where she got her strength from, but she actually beat up two big boys until they were in tears. He knew about the twins because they looked exactly the same. When he transferred to the school, he took a few more glances at the information. Jing Yunzhao, what's going on? The dean sighed and asked speechlessly. He really didn't know if it was because adolescent children were too rebellious. He always felt that these students were getting harder and harder to teach by the day. A few days ago, the whole school had announced to praise her, and in the blink of an eye, she had caused trouble in front of so many people. Before Jing Yunzhao could say anything, the classmate who sat at the same table with the Zhong brothers said, "Dean, we didn't do it right." Senior was angry. Zhongliang, and Zhongyi were chatting with us. They said that Su Chu was their cousin. We didn't believe them, so they took out photos to prove it. The dean wasn't surprised when he heard that. When the two brothers entered the school, their uncle had sent them there. At the time, that person had told him that his daughter was also in the school and they could look out for each other. How could they fight over such a small matter? What does it have to do with Jing Yunzhao? The dean asked, puzzled. The few classmates were a little nervous. They lowered their voices and said, Zhongliang and Zhongyi did take out photos, but they were selling photos. They said that they wanted to take some photos of Suchu. The price was between 20 to 100. After saying that, their faces turned red. The dean's mouth twitched when he heard that. Come with me. After saying that, he walked directly to the stairs where there was no one. After all, there were many students in the cafeteria. If word spread, who knew what would happen? Jing Yunzhao, did you beat them up because you heard it? The dean asked, a little speechless. The twins looked quite obedient on the surface, but he didn't expect them to have the guts to take photos of their cousin and sell them. The dean was angry. Suchu's eyes widened when she heard that. Cousin. Suchu looked at Jing Yunzhao suspiciously. Seeing Jing Yunzhao's tacit agreement, her eyes instantly turned red. She immediately rushed forward, clawing and scratching at the two brothers. Dean, they deserve it. Jing Yunzhao said, there are some things that you might not know. In fact, the two brothers and Suchu are only half cousins. The two families have never contacted each other before. When the Zhong siblings suddenly came to seek refuge, Uncle Suchu accepted them without hesitation. However, he didn't expect their sister to steal the Su family's money and run away a few days ago. Although Uncle Su was angry, he didn't hold it against them because it had nothing to do with them. He even spent money to arrange for them to go to school. Not only did they not know how to be grateful, but they even took Suchu's photos and showed them around. They even said that they wanted to sell private photos. You don't know how terrible their words were at that time. I think that a simple beating is already too light a punishment for such people. When the dean heard that, his brows furrowed. This matter could be big or small, but their behavior was absolutely terrible. At such a young age, they could use other people's photos as a tool for profit. They might even learn to threaten others in the future. Chapter 503. The dean looked at Zhongliang and Zhongyi, and the corner of his mouth twitched. Although they deserved it, she had hit them too hard. Looking at their faces, it was almost impossible to tell their original appearance. Not only was it difficult to distinguish between red and green, but there was also blood coming out of their mouths, and one of their front teeth had fallen out. Although it was serious, the dean still felt that this matter was not serious enough to give Jing Yunzhao a demerit. After all, the brothers were also in the wrong. The dean frowned and thought for a moment, then said, Jing Yunzhao, next time if you have any problems, you can talk to the teacher. It's your fault for hitting people. Later, write a 1,000-word self-reflection letter and hand it in. Also, clean the field for a week. If you cause trouble in school next time, you will be given a demerit. Jing Yunzhao did not have parents, and the responsibility of guardianship was in the hands of the school and the town's committee. However, she was a little girl after all, and no one would care about her. In the end, she still had to be taught by Teacher Qi. Moreover, she was just a little impulsive. Usually, she would not do anything bad. Ever since she started school, she had brought a lot of honor to the school. Her hands were sore from all kinds of awards, and her grades were stable. In the future, she was guaranteed to go to a key university. For the school, they could not fire her or bury a stain in her file because of this. Moreover, the twins had only been in school for a few days, and they had already done such a thing. It was even more disappointing. As soon as the dean said that, Jing Yunzhao hurriedly nodded politely. Okay. I promise I won't hit people in school next time. She was a civilized person. As long as others did not provoke her, she promised to be a sensible and obedient child. Not outside school either. The dean's mouth twitched. He felt that Jing Yunzhao's gaze was strange. After he finished speaking, he lowered his head and looked at the Zhong brothers. His face was a little irritated and unhappy. He sighed and said to Su Chu, that Su Chu, right? Stop scratching. Seeing that you are the victim, I'll let it go just now. If you hit again, I'll punish you too. Su Chu pursed her lips and retracted her hand, her eyes shining. She could not hit them in school, but she could at least wait until she was home. They lived in her house and enjoyed the convenience her parents gave them, but they actually bullied her and even wanted to take photos of her. If she did not teach them a lesson, she would change her surname to Zhong. The attitude of the girls was really scary, and the few students who participated shrank their heads in fear. You guys. The director stared at the students again and called out. Considering that it wouldn't be good if word got out, he only said, if you know you're wrong, then you're a good child. Don't just stand there. Send these two brothers to the infirmary to be bandaged. The rest of you can leave. After saying that, the director seemed to be a little tired. He lifted his feet and went downstairs. Before he left, he gave Jing Yunzhao a warning look. In the whole school, the only student that the teachers and even the headmaster both loved and hated was Jing Yunzhao. They liked her for her excellent grades and her steady indifference. They pitied her for her desolate background and her lack of support. However, they were also annoyed that she often caused trouble and often hit others. Even the headmaster had to ask about her situation from time to time. He cared more about her than his own child. After the director left, Jing Yunzhao, Su Chu, and Xiao Haiqing also went back to class. The Zhong brothers' hearts were full of resentment. The two of them lay in the infirmary for the whole afternoon and only left after school ended did they support each other. They looked really pitiful. However, as soon as they left the school gate and walked to a quiet alley, someone put a sack over their head and beat them up again. Chapter 504. Jing Yunzhao had never been the type to suffer losses. The first beating was because the Zhong brothers had treated Su Chu in such a disgusting manner. The second beating was because she had been punished by the director to sweep the field. Although it wasn't a heavy task, it should be counted on the brothers. Previously, she had helped Huazhe clean up many powers in Huaning County, causing Huazhe to be the boss of Huaning County. Huazhe was naturally willing to serve. However, at the same time, Jing Yunzhao asked Huazhe to help inquire about Zhong Qing's whereabouts. Huazhe was very fast. With the photos provided by Jing Yunzhao, he quickly obtained some information. Zhong Qing was currently living in a private house. The owner of the house was an old man. According to the neighbors, the old man's children were out of town. Now that they had made a name for themselves, he specially brought them over. As for the house, it was now in the hands of a person called Wenhong. Speaking of Wenhong, he should be the person who had taken Zhong Qing away. Because Wenhong wasn't a local, the neighbors only knew that he had been to the old man's house before. At that time, the old man seemed to have called him Changzi, which should be a nickname. The old man's surname was Hu, so he should be the same. This Hu Wenhong was a bit strange. He had moved in after the new year and rarely went out. When he saw the neighbors, he didn't like to greet them. In the beginning, there were neighbors who went to visit him, but he didn't like it and never allowed anyone to enter his house. He looked a bit sinister, so not long after, no one was willing to pay attention to him. His reputation in the neighborhood wasn't very good. As for why he was so special to Zhongqing, no one knew. Perhaps it was because a tortoise liked a mung bean. After Zhongqing had a place to live, her luck seemed to have improved. She found a new job in a small Western medicine clinic. Logically speaking, her education level was enough to apply for a job in a big hospital. However, she had a criminal record after all. Moreover, when she graduated, she hadn't even completed her internship. She was well aware of it and chose to fill her stomach first. Now that Jing Yunzhao knew Zhongqing's whereabouts, she couldn't just leave it be. Previously, she had said that she was vicious. If she didn't prove it, wouldn't she have scolded her for nothing? On Saturday, Jing Yunzhao went out by himself. The temperature slowly rose, and Jing Yunzhao was wearing cooler clothes than before. Jing Yunzhao went straight to the place where Zhongqing worked. After entering, she found that Zhongqing was clumsily giving an 4-drip to a man in his 30s. He had only inserted the pillow a few times, but he still could not find the blood vessel. The man's wife next to him looked anxious. It's fine, it's fine. Little sister, you just arrived. It's normal that you can't do it well. My skin is rough and my flesh is thick. Just give it a try. If you meet old people and children in the future, they will suffer less. The man was dripping with cold sweat, but he still smiled. Zhongqing looked at him gratefully. Don't worry, this time it will be accurate. Although Zhongqing had a good education, she spent all her time in school on love and doing good deeds. She didn't learn any real skills at all. She was the kind of stupid but cute little girl in school. The boys always liked to help and cover for her, and most of the girls hated her to the extreme. After she graduated, she didn't even complete her internship. At that time, she was miserably scolded by other doctors because of the 4-drip. Therefore, she had some psychological trauma in this regard. Moreover, she was really clumsy and the type that couldn't be taught. Chapter 505. For the past few days, Zhongqing had been looking for patients to practice her skills every day. However, because she had failed too many times, the owner of the clinic did not dare to let her find some women and children to practice on. Some patients who looked like they were not to be trifled with would go on stage themselves after failing once and let Zhongqing watch. And today, it was not easy to meet a fool. In fact, the owner of the clinic also regretted finding such a vase back. However, every time he wanted to dismiss her, he would see her pitiful, apologetic, and encouraging look. That idea would disappear without a trace. The doctor sighed, hoping that Zhongqing would learn this time. After Jing Yunzhao entered, he sat not far from Zhongqing and watched this scene with a smile. He saw her slender little hand gently touching the man's big hand. She frowned slightly and looked very careful. She looked very serious. Just as she was about to do it again, Jing Yunzhao suddenly laughed. Miss Xiaoqing, you have to be more attentive. This man is about to be poked into a hornet's nest by you. However, you are indeed from the imperial royal court. Even if you don't do anything, this big brother is obediently served by you and has a satisfied face. This man looked like he was speaking righteously, but once his wife was not looking at him, his eyes immediately stared at Zhongqing's face. The beauty was good-looking, had delicate skin, and had a fragrance on her body. She had been wandering in front of him alone. Her tender little hand was even in his hand. It would be strange if he did not have any other thoughts. Most importantly, that was Zhongqing. She was a woman whose every move exuded acute temptation. Even if the man in front of her was a gentleman who could sit still and do nothing, she would probably be able to capture him. As soon as Jing Yunzhao's voice came out, Zhongqing was shocked. Her hand trembled and immediately stabbed the man fiercely. In an instant, blood beads appeared. The man was also shocked. Coupled with the pain, he instantly jumped up. When his wife saw this, she was instantly furious. She pointed at Zhongqing and said, "Do you know how to do it or not? You've already inserted so many needles. They're either too deep or crooked. What have you done to his hand? My husband already has a fever and is not feeling well. If you continue to torment him like this, I think he will lose his life in a while." A man's blood vessels were always clearer than a woman's. Even a layman like her had almost mastered it, but the nurse in front of her still couldn't do it after so long. Moreover, her hand seemed to be out of control. When she was about to insert the needle, it began to tremble non-stop. Not only was she anxious, but she also looked like she was about to cry. Seeing this, they were too embarrassed to stop her. But even the most patient person would not be able to withstand such torment, right? Once or twice would have been fine, but this was 5 or 6 needles. Especially now, she had inserted the needle a little too deep. When she pulled it out, fresh blood gushed out with a sizzling sound. Zhongqing retreated in a panic. "I'm sorry. It's all because of her sudden words that gave me a fright." Zhongqing angrily turned around and pointed at Jing Yunzhao. He only saw Jing Yunzhao smile. Her previously cold and indifferent face was now smiling brightly, revealing a row of cute little white teeth, making her look even more lovable and obedient. "I'm reminding you, Miss Xiaoqing. You're still not suitable for this line of work. Compared to this, your previous profession is much easier to learn." Jing Yunzhao narrowed her eyes and continued to smile. Zhongqing gritted her teeth and stomped her feet in anger. "What nonsense are you talking about?" With her shout, others also recalled what Jing Yunzhao had said at the beginning. It seemed like she had mentioned the imperial court. Chapter 506. The man who was bleeding from the needle subconsciously swallowed his saliva. He stared at Zhongqing and asked, "Why did this little girl say that you're from the imperial royal court?" As long as one was a man, how many of them had not heard of that place? The case would be heard in the next 2 days, and everyone was paying attention to it. The man's wife glared at Zhongqing and looked her up and down. She suddenly snorted, "Well, I was wondering why you couldn't hit the mark. You're deliberately trying to seduce my husband, right? Is this place a place for treatment or a dirty black hair salon? How dare you hire a miss?" When the owner of the clinic heard this, he quickly ran over and treated the man's wound with a cotton swab and alcohol. "You must have misunderstood. She was hired by me. She's a graduate of Serene City Medical University. She has a graduation certificate," the doctor quickly said. Jing Yunzhao had no objections to Western medicine because it was all about medical skills and treating patients. Moreover, Western medicine did have many advantages that Chinese medicine could not touch. It could be said that each had their own strengths and responsibilities, and no one was in the way of others. However, this doctor was interesting. He hired such an unreliable person who could not even perform the minimum infusion after working for so many days. Yet, he still kept her. If it was not selfishness, then what was it? Was he treating the patient's body as a toy? Although it did require practice to perform acupuncture correctly, the practice could be avoided if it was someone else, right? He did not think that if a person who graduated from such a university was really capable, would she not even be able to fulfill the most basic requirements? Jing Yunzhao chuckled, "The certificate can be forged, and it doesn't mean that you have the ability. Otherwise, why would a student from such a famous university come here to do a job that doesn't look like a doctor or a nurse? Have you said enough? Little girl, what are you doing here? You're not here to see a doctor, right? If that's the case, we don't welcome you here," the doctor immediately said. Jing Yunzhao smiled. I'm here to help so that others won't be fooled, Jing Yunzhao said deliberately. Who asked you to be a busybody? Zhong Qing said angrily. Miss Xiaoqing, have you forgotten? This is what I learned from you. Meddling in other people's business feels pretty good. No wonder you like it so much, Jing Yunzhao said directly. Didn't she say that she was persecuted by Li Xiaoyun when she was in the imperial royal court? To put it nicely, she was helping him. To put it bluntly, she was insulting him, right? Zhong Qing was so angry that her face turned red. She was still holding a needle in her hand, making her look quite scary. However, Jing Yunzhao wasn't afraid of her at all. She glanced at the patient's wife and passed the phone over. This big sister, I'm not lying. If you don't believe me, you can take a look for yourself. This is the footage taken by the reporters when the young ladies from Imperial Royal Court were arrested. Take a look and see if it's her. The other party took a look and saw that the video was fixed on a scene. Many people had watched the video several times and could tell whether it was real or fake at a glance. It was just that because there were too many people who were caught before, if one simply looked at the footage, it would be impossible to match Zhong Qing with one of the members. However, now that Jing Yunzhao had specially paused the footage at Zhong Qing's location, it was naturally impossible for her to not recognize him. Zhong Qing was dumbfounded. Jing Yunzhao, how could she do this? When the woman saw this, her face turned red with anger. When she thought of how her husband's hand had just been touched by a young lady, anger surged in her heart. She raised her hand and slapped Zhong Qing. Chapter 507. The crisp sound startled everyone. Zhong Qing's eyes widened. Before he could even react, he heard the patient's wife scolding, "You shameless little whore. How dare you pretend to be a doctor and seduce my husband? I'll kill you." As she spoke, she stuffed the phone into Jing Yunzhao's hand and pounced on him. Her husband was dumbfounded at this moment. He reached out to stop her, but the woman glared at him fiercely. "Don't you dare stop me. Don't think that I didn't see the two of you flirting with each other just now. If it weren't for your illness, I would have settled the score with you long ago." She was not blind. Just now, her husband kept staring at this woman when she was not paying attention. She knew that it was a man's biological instinct to look at beautiful women. Anyway, in front of her, he could only have evil thoughts. It was impossible for him to have the guts to do that. Besides, her husband was now having a fever and his mind was not clear. She did not want to argue with him at this time. But now it was different. This damn woman was actually a prostitute. And a prostitute from the Imperial Royal Court. Recently, she had heard a lot of people say that the women in the Imperial Royal Court were like vixens. After a man went in, he was willing to pay. Even if this man was really a good man who cared about his family before, once he went in to talk about business, few could resist temptation. That kind of place was a club to put it nicely, but it was a brothel and a brothel to put it bluntly. Now it seemed that the rumors were not wrong at all. Look at this woman. She only knew how to pretend to be pitiful and weak. She looked obedient and sensible, but she obviously had bad intentions. The man's face turned red after being yelled at by his wife. In addition, he felt a little guilty, so he quickly shrank his head. When he saw some women looking at him with condemning eyes, he immediately helped his wife and scolded, "Just now, I really thought that you were an angel in white. I thought that after you injected a few needles, others would suffer less. I didn't expect you to have other ideas. Let me tell you, I'm a good family man. You can't even compare to 1% of my wife." Jing Yunzhao raised her eyebrows and smiled. Zhong Qing's hair was being pulled by the woman, and she even felt a burning pain on her face. At this time, she was thinking that this man would come forward to help. Who knew that not only did he not stop his wife, but he even added fuel to the fire? And what was he talking about? Just now, she was clearly carefully injecting him. Although she felt that this man was very reasonable and that his wife was not very compatible with him, she did not do anything. Besides, although her appearance was not as good as Jing Yunzhao, she was always praised by others. The woman in front of her who was completely a shrew. He actually said that she was not even 1% of this shrew. Was the man say that she was not even 1% of this shrew? Was he blind? The owner of the clinic wanted to help, but when he saw the video, he was shocked. For a moment, she did not know what to do. It was not until more than 10 minutes later that the woman took the initiative to let go that she hurriedly went forward and said, "Don't hit him, don't hit him. The others are still receiving 4 drips. It won't be good if you touch him," the woman snorted. "In the future, I won't come to your lousy clinic even if you beg me. Later, I'll have a good talk with the neighbors. Let's see who dares to come to your lousy den." After saying that, she did not care about her husband's condition and dragged him away, slamming the door. Chapter 508. The woman's words made the owner of the clinic want to cry. How did his clinic become a den of prostitution? He turned to look at Jing Yunzhao. "Little girl, aren't you too good at harming people? You can't blame me. Everyone has the right to know, right? Moreover, this is a clinic, a place where people's lives are linked. If the technique is wrong or the ability is insufficient, it may cause casualties." Putting aside the fact that Zhong Qing did go to the Imperial Royal Court to be a prostitute, even if she didn't, she doesn't deserve to be here. Some time ago, she worked in the traditional medicine clinic of one of my elders and mixed up most of the medicinal herbs. Fortunately, we found out. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable, Jing Yunzhao said directly. Her voice was sonorous and powerful, and her gaze was firm. It didn't seem like she was lying. "Xiao Wang, our family has a headache and fever, and they all come to you for treatment. If you hire such a troublemaker, we won't come in the future, that's right." That needle was so ruthless just now. I felt the pain just watching from the side. She even said that she graduated from a famous university. Who would believe that? That university must have taught them, right? Can someone like her even graduate? When I came yesterday, I was pricked by her for nothing. I was in pain, so I scolded her. In the end, it was as if I had done something terrible. My body is not feeling well, and I still have to suffer from this prostitute's anger. What right does she have? Suddenly, the patients who were receiving transfusions couldn't stand it anymore and started to speak up. When the doctor saw this, he quickly took out Zhong Qing's personal belongings and stuffed them in her hands. Without another word, he wanted to force her out of the door. "Zhong Qing, please do me a favor and stop working here. You didn't help at all these days and even caused me so much trouble. I don't want to bicker with you. Here's 100 yuan. Leave, I can't afford to use you." Previously, he thought that she was good-looking and should be able to get along with other children. Who knew that such a thing would happen? Zhong Qing looked at the 100 yuan in her hand and widened her eyes. "How can you do this? I didn't do anything wrong. You said that you would use me. How can you chase me away because of these people's nonsense?" Then, he broke free and pointed at Jing Yunzhao with a ferocious look on his face. "Jing Yunzhao, how have I wronged you? Why have you targeted me again and again? You caused everyone to betray me and go against me. You're the vixen." She really couldn't take it anymore. These days, she lived in Wenhong's house. Although she didn't have to worry about food and drink, she always felt like she was being raised. Now that she came out to work, she felt a lot more confident, even if she still didn't have a single cent. However, a good job was once again ruined by Jing Yunzhao. This was the third time. Seeing that Zhongqing, who only knew how to pretend to be cute and cry from being wronged, had such an expression, Jing Yunzhao's gaze was somewhat mocking. Jing Yunzhao lifted his feet and walked out of the clinic. Zhongqing immediately followed behind him angrily. Once the glass door of the clinic was closed, Jing Yunzhao turned around and said with a smile, "Miss, when you find your next job, you must let me know. I will definitely pay you a visit again. Since you said that I'm vicious, if I don't do as you say, I'll be letting you down. I promise you that from today onwards, you won't be able to find any job in Huaning County. Of course, except for one place that I can't control, the red light district." Chapter 509. Jing Yunzhao's gaze carried a hint of coldness, as if it was piercing through one's heart, causing Zhongqing to inexplicably feel a chill run down his spine. But a moment later, she gritted her teeth with resentment and said, "Who do you think you are? Do you still want to cover the sky with one hand? You said that I can't find a job, right? Fine, I'll find one for you. I'll live a good life, and I'll never let a shameless wretched girl like you succeed." Jing Yunzhao raised his eyebrows and smiled. "I'm shameless. Well, I'd like to see how long this hypocritical face of yours can last. Let's wait and see." Zhongqing had lost all her face a long time ago, hadn't she? Starting from when she relied on her boyfriend to buy all kinds of clothes and jewelry, it was just that at that time, she used the perfect excuse of being in love to cover herself up, looking so innocent and natural. Later, when she was in the imperial royal court, there was no need to talk about it. She pretended to be thin-skinned, but in fact, she was so thick-skinned that ordinary people could not touch her. And now, without that spendthrift boyfriend, she had found a stranger. Regardless of whether the other party had good intentions or not, she only knew that if she was a normal girl, she would not leave with a person she met for the first time, or even live together with him. She had done so many disgusting things, and now she was scolding others for being shameless. According to her judgment, the word shameless would probably be used as a compliment. Zhongqing's cute face had become a little distorted at this time, and she hated Jing Yunzhao to the extreme. Especially at this time, her face was covered with scratches, and her hair was messy like a lunatic. Even passers-by could not bring up the slightest bit of goodwill. Jing Yunzhao looked at the thing in her hand, and a trace of slyness flashed in his eyes. The moment she turned around, he took out a stone the size of a pearl from the space and directly flicked it at her calf. Instantly, her whole body fell to the ground and directly smashed the billboard at the entrance of the clinic. The doctor heard the noise and went out to take a look. He was so angry that he had a headache. "What are you doing? This billboard cost a few hundred yuan. You're really my enemy. Are you here to jinx me?" the doctor said angrily. Zhongqing blinked her eyes, feeling wronged. It was a pity that her face was disfigured. She didn't look romantic at all. Instead, she looked terrifying. The doctor naturally wouldn't fall for her trick again. He said, "Pay up. 200 yuan will do." He had been blinded by lard to hire such a scourge. When Zhongqing heard that, he immediately said, "It's not my fault. My legs were a little numb just now, so I couldn't stand properly. It's because I'm too tired from work today." When the doctor heard this, he was so angry that his face turned blue. The next second, he stared at the 100 yuan in her hand and snatched it without saying a word. "You leave here quickly. You are simply a jinx. I want to see who is unlucky to meet you." Wasn't she working at the Imperial Pleasure Dragon Court? And the result? Such a big clubhouse closed down in the blink of an eye. Now, he was working here. In just a few days, he had offended many patients, causing him to be gossiped about. This kind of woman was indeed good-looking, but what was the use of being good-looking? There were many good-looking women in this world, but there were very few as troublesome as her. "How are you robbing me?" Zhongqing said. The doctor was so angry that his head hurt. "Robbing you? I just gave you this 100 yuan. Get lost, get lost. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rough." She actually had the cheek to say that she was too tired from work. He should be the one saying that. He clearly wanted to find someone to help him, but the result? In the past few days since Zhongqing came, his workload had become heavier than before. Chapter 5:10. With the doctor's roar, Zhongqing shrank back, tears streaming down her face. Why did everyone who interacted with Jing Yunzhao become so bad? Zhongqing couldn't figure it out, but he didn't dare to ask. A wave of pain came from his leg, and he limped towards the place he was staying. Jing Yunzhao told Huazhe that she could guarantee that Zhongqing wouldn't have a good life for a long time in the future. After Zhongqing returned to her room, she didn't find Wenhong. She had no one to talk to about the grievances in her heart. After thinking about it, she tiptoed to the basement. There seemed to be a pungent smell in the basement. It didn't smell good, and it seemed to be a little stinky. The air didn't circulate, but the door was still tightly shut. Zhongqing thought about it and reached for the door handle. However, before she could touch it, the door opened. Wenhong appeared in front of her, and in the next second, the door slammed shut again with a dong sound. His expression was very ugly. "Didn't I tell you not to come here?" His malicious gaze was like that of a venomous snake, and there was a strange smell on his body. His suit, which was usually neatly dressed, looked very messy, with some dust on it. The scariest thing was that voice, which echoed in the corridor, was magnified in Zhongqing's ears. The voice was sharp and piercing, and that expression seemed to carry a strong sense of disgust. She had stayed with Wenhong for a few days, and the two of them had even slept on the same bed. However, she had never seen him like this. He was like a demon, as if he would reach out and break her neck if she took another step forward. It made her feel cold all over. Her whole body trembled. I was fired. The tense atmosphere lasted for a few seconds. Hu Wenhong took a deep breath, grabbed her wrist, and left the basement. However, the first floor still didn't see any sunlight. His face was still indelibly gloomy, which made people's moods seem to collapse, go crazy, and tremble. You were fierce to me. I know, you don't like me. Then I'll leave. I won't trouble you. Zhongqing was extremely scared, but she felt even more wronged. Hu Wenhong looked at her for a while, and his face became better. I didn't mean to. You just suddenly appeared and scared me. And I'm most afraid of being disturbed when I'm working. Don't cry. I'll make bacon for you to eat tonight. Zhongqing sobbed. I met Jing Yunzhao again. She was talking nonsense with someone else and got me fired. At the mention of Jing Yunzhao, an indecipherable look flashed across the man's eyes. After pondering for a moment, Hu Wenhong said, "This Jing Yunzhao, don't mention her name, it makes me angry. Yesterday afternoon, my brothers called me and told me that she had beaten them up in the school cafeteria. Their front teeth were all knocked out. That dean wasn't a good person either. He only made Jing Yunzhao write a self-reflection letter. It wasn't fair at all. A bad student like her should be expelled. How can a girl beat your brother?" Hu Wenhong asked in a low voice. "Didn't I listen to you and ask my brother to find out? The students in school all said that she knows martial arts and is very good at beating people up. Even an adult is no match for her." "Oh right, didn't you see it on the news yesterday?" A high school sophomore chased bad guys and beat down two human traffickers with her bare hands.